Hey guys, so what's been happening in the hobby this week? Well, I thought since I've just completed a little 6 month project here of my Denizens of Catan busts for my Blighter Gods website, which you can go get from my store. Link is in the down there. This guy at the end here is actually free for. This guy here is actually free for this month, and this one will be coming free in June. And the first one here is free all the time, and the rest are $3, so Australian. So if you want to go grab those, by all means, that's all really cool. But that's not the point of this discussion. The point of it is to have a little bit of a talk about what happens when you complete a project, or more importantly, what can happen to you, I guess. It's not really the psychology or the emotional side, or I guess how you can feel about something, or just your motivation generally for like painting, models, hobby, that sort of thing, or creativity in general, or art in general. Because there's an interesting thing that happens to some people, and I figure, since I've just completed this, and I've recently completed another big project quite a while ago now, but I feel like, and I experienced some of what we're about to talk about, I thought it might be like a good little time to just have a little discussion on what this is, because I've been going through over the weeks talking about how to motivate yourself and how to get an army painted, and different tactics that you can employ to getting things painted. But what I've noticed online and everywhere is that no one really talks about what happens when you complete it, or how you might feel about everything. And it's a whole. It can be another stumbling block. So what am I talking about? Well, basically, I guess it's kind of a heavy topic, but depression. Okay, and apparently this is something that can happen to. It's quite common that when you're striving for a goal, once you complete that goal, sometimes you can have a massive drop off in terms of how you feel, and you go through like a sort of a slump, or a depressive state, or but it's a very particular type of depression. It's not just like general depression. It's to do with your with what you've been doing. So this happens to apparently to high performing sports people and stuff like that. When they reach their goal, they get their gold medal or whatever it is, and then they often find that they're a bit lost at the end. It's like they sort of jumping off a cliff into a black hole, and there's nothing on the other side. What do you do now? And that can happen to you with creativity. And I didn't really know about this. So we'll step back a bit. So 2 years ago, I made my card game for this brand, and I completed it. It was a really hard slog, and I got it done. And I felt that was really cool, But then something happened. I just felt kind of, I guess, empty. A very peculiar thing. Now, I've myself personally have suffered from depression since I was young, but that's like more normal depression, everyday stuff. I've never had it, infiltrate my creativity. My creativity has always been like a safe space, and for most of us in the hobby, that hobby time is a safe space, right? You go there because that's really like a protected zone. The rest of the world kind of falls away when you're doing the hobby, and that's your calm, your rock, your meditative time, right, to clear your head. But what happens when that depression eats into that? You know what I mean? And it's very curious. I'd never experienced that before, and so and basically what it did was really just demotivate me to produce anything. Now, if you have a look at my Instagram or any of the stuff that I do, it doesn't look like that. It looks like I'm being very productive, right? But for my opinion, I wasn't. And there's a few key areas of productivity that I wasn't doing, and that was sculpting. And that's something that I'd been doing a lot, and I just couldn't bring myself to sit down and really sculpt anything. So the best I could do is just doing sort of more sort of practical task stuff, like keying and cutting models to prepare them for 3D printing or whatever. I'd do that, but I wouldn't really be sculpting anything new, really. And this kind of thing, went on and on and on, and it didn't stop, And so I went through maybe not 2 years, maybe it's like a year and a half or so, but it's been almost 2 years, I think. And just really difficult to sit down and really just get stuck in like I used to do. I'd be doing hours and hours and hours and hours a week, just like pumping everything out, like, no problem at all. I would just sit there and just smash it out real easy, and now that I'm back in the hobby, I'm doing that, a lot of the time as well. And it's only now, since like this year, that I've managed to sort of like bring myself out of that funk, and come back to a more productive zone where I'm now sculpting again regularly. I'm motivated again to get back into it. And that feeling, that sort of, that deeper sort of, I don't know what it was, just this sort of, empty thing, has slowly faded away. So, now let's bring this back to the point of all of this. Well, you're doing your models, you're painting them up, and that's great. You got your goal. You're gonna smash it out. You're gonna get your army done so you can play some games. But what can happen to a lot of us is that when you finish that, there isn't any sort of like, fireworks going off. Nothing happens, right? You just finish it, and then there's no gratification there except whatever sense of self-satisfaction you got from completing it, right? But there isn't really very much of a payoff, and sometimes that can leave you a little bit lost, and can actually end up doing you more harm, as I've experienced. And it can be a very slow road to digging yourself out of that state. And so I suppose what I'd like to talk about is maybe some strategies that you can employ to sort of like, once you've completed a project, to, one, you want to give yourself obviously a break, some time to relax and not, push on with another project straight away. But two, a bit of reflection time on what you did well or what you didn't, and a bit of that constructive time, because that can help to find some purpose and some motivation for, the next thing that you want to try. Or in a lot of cases, you might actually start getting that kind of depression feeling right before you finish, and then you don't finish it because of those reasons, and you move on to something else and never complete something, right? So this kind of depression thing can hit either before or after, but it's usually somewhere at that end stage, right? And so, so one of the things that I found that's worked, obviously continuing to do stuff, right? You want to keep your hand in it, but knowing when to back off, I think, is really the key here, and understanding that you might have, pushed yourself a little bit too hard, and maybe you're a bit burnt out. But burnout's different, so it's important to sort of figure out what's actually burnout and what is, related to this type of depression that I'm talking about. And they're kind of coming from a different place. They're not the same thing. It's very hard to distinguish which one is which, but you can soon figure that out, because you can still sort of be, high functioning, or like, as you can see in my past 2 years, you can still be doing stuff but still feel that depression. So it's going to be very individual for each person. And I know this is a heavy topic for a hobby for toys, but most of us put a lot of ourselves into these things, and not paying attention to that can sometimes lead to you stopping altogether. And as I said in one of my early talks, when I came back to this hobby, that sort of watershed moment of going, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this all the time? So this is important to us, and it just satisfies an element of who we are that nothing else fills, right? It's just a special thing that some people just really enjoy. Just like other people really get into, physical activities, sports and so on, that really speak to them. This speaks to us, right? And so you want to spend some time reflection and give yourself maybe some smaller goals, and not really goals, but smaller little projects to dabble at. But the important thing is not to put everything away. I think that's really the key. So I would do things like a lot of sketching. So a lot of my Daily Dead series that you'll see on Instagram, which is all my like quick sketches. So I would sketch a bit, and that's something fast that I could do. So even if I was just feeling totally unmotivated, I could do that in like 10 minutes, and it's very relaxing, and I could do it while I was watching, YouTube or whatever, or some video, or listen to music or whatever, and I would just draw it out. and make a character. So I could feel like I've done something, even if I couldn't bring myself to actually like open up, ZBrush, which is the sculpting program that I use, and start sculpting something. So I would at least feel like I've done something, even though it was very, very minimal. And that happened for a long time. I would just do those things, right? Or then those practical things, keying something. When I could bring myself to open ZBrush, I would then do these small tasks. So it's not related to the main thing. You're sort of skirting around it, right? So if you don't feel motivated to go and start doing other army, you feel like you're a bit lost, or you don't find anything inspiring, look for those kind of simple tasks like bases, or other bits and pieces that are around what you're doing, that can help bring you back in to finding that joy and excitement of it, and that's really what it is. It's about just finding those little pieces that help re-inspire you and bring you back to life, so that depression then leaves you. Because often, unless you're going to go to years of, whatever, therapy or whatever, you're never really going to know exactly what's triggering that. And it is a different type of depression to everyday depression. It's going to, like, you can resolve this, but still have other depression as well, right? This is just really related to that creative process and trying to, bring yourself back from a sort of blank, field, what I mean, like a deserted desert space where there's nothing in front of you and nothing behind. You want to have those nice things coming out in front of you, and that little bit of hope and joy again, right? So that's really where I think I would attack it. If you're coming to the end of a hobby project and you're finding yourself not really motivated, mix it up. Give yourself really simple things. But again, the key is not to pack everything away. Keep just a little project or just something out. And whenever you feel, you sit down and you just do a little dabble a bit, very, very small, right? And just keep things ticking over and experiment and do different things, and you'll find something in all of that might trigger some of that intrigue and enjoyment you have, and then just run with that. And so, these little guys were a good experiment for that. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I need to do something. I need to, bring out a product, because all the products I was doing are taking so long. Like card games take ages to make. The second deck I'm doing right now for the game is taking a long time. But what could I do to at least give myself a result, right? Something that I could finish and see myself finishing it, right? So this is the next step after skirting around those little tasks. You want to give yourself a finishable goal, right? So I designed this little idea that I would do these busts. A lot of these I'd already sculpted, but I hadn't quite finished. So I would go back and, cut them, do the keys, get them in the right shape, do the plinth piece, and then finish off the details, and then test print them and paint them. And so that gave me a little project to do, and I gave myself the goal of one a month, right? And release it on my website. So that would get me back into the mode of just producing work, and it has literally in 6 months. That's shaken off all of that feeling of just being sort of uninterested to do any creativity, even though I was doing some. So that was my trick. So once I'd gotten happy enough to do a little bit, and a lot of that came about by just like painting, miniatures again. That process of miniature painting was very cathartic for me, and it gives me a nice downtime instead of doing the creative work, because it's a different type of creativity. It's like I'm not like sort of as invested, in the finished result. I mean I am, but it's not my personal work. So there's a different kind of stress when it's your own work, right? And so that would be the next goal, I think, is then setting yourself that small little project that maybe 3 months long, 6 months long, something short that's achievable, small, that you think you can manage, and then see about completing that. Not a whole army, not a whole this or that. Just maybe a collection of models, or a little diorama thing, or whatever it is, right, that you want to do. Or maybe it's just going to a tournament. That might be the thing, right? So you just want to go to a tournament, like maybe you just want to finish off an army that's like 3/4 done. So maybe there's just like 10 models or something that you have to finish, and there's a tournament in 6 months, and you just want to go along and do that and just experience what it's like to hang out with other people and enjoy that part of the hobby again. It might not be the painting side. It might be that the thing that really jogs you back in and gets you out of that is actually just, hanging out with people. And that's also very important. Obviously, right now, because of COVID, we have, obviously that issue as well, those isolation issues and that kind of stuff, and that can also be affecting you. So that can be a way of bringing it back as well. Once your area obviously is safe to do that and all that kind of stuff, then maybe that kind of thing might be a good choice as well. So they're my thoughts on that. I don't have much more to say because I'm only freshly out of that zone, that funky zone, and feeling much better about, my projects and what I'm doing now. I'm sculpting again, I'm doing all that stuff. So that's, for me, I kind of feel like I've managed to find a good balance there and bring myself back into a zone that I understand more. It's a surrounding that I know. I'm in familiar territory again, rather than in sort of black murky water. And that's really the best you can hope for, right? I'm not trying to say I've got any answers here. These are just my thoughts and I guess observations of myself and how I've experienced it in the last couple of years, and I guess putting that out there so that you understand that might be something, or maybe you don't know, or you've heard these kinds of things before, but just another person's point of view on this topic, so that if you happen to be experiencing something like this, hopefully this might help you, or you might know someone who's kind of in a bit of a funk or whatever, and maybe some of these suggestions might help them out. I don't know. So yeah. It's a bit heavy topic for this week. I'll try to think of something a little bit less full on to talk about for next week's little topical chat. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be just an army book review or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed this, and please hit that subscribe button, like button, all that kind of stuff if you have. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one.